What happens when Hollywood royalty meets late-night television and refuses to play by the rules? In just 39 seconds, one comment would turn a routine celebrity interview into television chaos, destroying a carefully crafted public image and shocking millions of viewers worldwide. The Late Night with Seth Meyers studio buzzed with its usual pre-show energy. Cameras rolled as the theme music faded, and Seth Meyers flashed his trademark welcoming smile to the packed audience. Tonight promised to be special. His guest was someone the world had been eager to hear from, someone who rarely granted interviews anymore. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Meghan Markle," Seth announced with genuine warmth, gesturing toward the guest entrance as applause erupted throughout the studio. Meghan emerged wearing an elegant cream-colored blazer, her smile radiant as she waved to the crowd. She moved with practiced grace, the kind that comes from years in the spotlight, first as an actress and then as part of the most famous family in the world. The audience loved her instantly. "Thank you so much for having me, Seth," Meghan said as she settled into the guest chair, crossing her legs and adjusting her blazer with careful precision. "This feels wonderful. The energy in here is incredible." "Well, we're thrilled to have you here," Seth replied, his tone genuine and professional. "I have to say, you look fantastic. How are you doing? Really doing?" The question seemed simple enough, but Meghan's smile flickered for just a moment. "I'm doing well, thank you. Better than well, actually. I'm thriving." "That's great to hear," Seth continued, settling back in his chair. "You know, I think a lot of people have been curious about your life lately. There's been so much speculation in the media." "Speculation," Meghan repeated, her tone shifting slightly. "Yes, there's been quite a lot of that, hasn't there?" Seth nodded, maintaining his friendly demeanor. "It comes with the territory, I suppose. But tonight, I thought we could just have a normal conversation, talk about your projects, your family. Maybe share some laughs." "Normal," Meghan said with a small laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm not sure I remember what normal feels like anymore, Seth." "Well, let's start simple then," Seth suggested, leaning forward slightly. "Tell us about your latest project. I understand you've been working on some exciting new ventures." Meghan's posture straightened, and her media training kicked in. "Oh yes, I'm incredibly passionate about the work we're doing. It's all about storytelling, really, authentic storytelling that represents voices that haven't been heard before." "That sounds amazing," Seth responded enthusiastically. "Can you give us some specifics? What kind of stories are you most excited to tell?" "Well," Meghan began, her voice taking on a more serious tone, "I think it's important to understand that not everyone has had the platform I've had. Not everyone gets the chance to speak their truth." The audience remained engaged, but Seth noticed a subtle shift in her energy. "Absolutely, and you've certainly used your platform to speak about important issues." "I have," Meghan agreed, her chin lifting slightly. "Though not everyone has appreciated that, as I'm sure you're aware." Seth maintained his professional smile. "Well, that's part of being in the public eye, right? Not everyone's going to agree with everything you say or do." Meghan's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "Is it though, Seth? Is it really that simple?" "I think," Seth said carefully, "that when you're in a position of influence, people are going to have opinions. That's just how it works." "How it works," Meghan repeated, her voice carrying a new edge. "You make it sound so casual, so dismissive." Seth blinked, clearly not expecting this turn. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sound dismissive at all. I was just acknowledging that criticism comes with fame." "Criticism," Meghan said, leaning forward in her chair. "Is that what you call it when the entire British press decides to destroy someone's life? When they make up stories and spread lies?" The studio audience grew quieter, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Seth maintained his composure, though his smile became more strained. "I think the relationship between celebrities and the press has always been complicated." "Complicated?" Meghan echoed, shaking her head. "That's one way to put it, I suppose." "Look," Seth said, trying to steer the conversation back to safer ground, "I know you've had some difficult experiences, but you've also accomplished incredible things. You've inspired millions of people around the world." "Have I?" Meghan asked, her tone becoming more confrontational. "Or have I simply been painted as the villain in someone else's story?" Seth shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I think most people recognize your achievements and your advocacy work." "Most people," Meghan said with a bitter laugh. "You mean the people who actually bother to look beyond the headlines? Because let me tell you, Seth, there aren't as many of those as you might think." "Well, that's why interviews like this are important," Seth offered, trying to maintain the conversation's flow. "It gives you a chance to set the record straight." "Set the record straight," Meghan repeated, her voice rising slightly. as if the record was ever straight to begin with. The audience was now completely silent, watching this unexpected confrontation unfold. Seth realized he needed to regain control of the situation. "Meghan," Seth said, his voice calm but firm, "I think we might be getting off track here. Why don't we talk about something more positive? Your children, perhaps?" Meghan's eyes flashed. "My children? You want to talk about my children on national television?" "I just thought," Seth began, clearly flustered by her reaction, "that it might be nice to hear about your family life. You know, the lighter side of things." "The lighter side?" Meghan said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Because everything else about my life is so dark and heavy? Is that it?" Seth raised his hand slightly, a gesture meant to be calming. "That's not what I meant at all. I was simply trying to find a topic that might be more comfortable for you." "More comfortable for me?" Meghan's voice grew louder. "Or more comfortable for you and your audience? Because heaven forbid we talk about anything real or meaningful?" The camera operators exchanged glances, unsure whether to keep rolling. This was not the lighthearted celebrity chat they had prepared for. Seth's producer stood just off stage, watching the disaster unfold with growing alarm. "Meghan," Seth said, his professional mask beginning to slip, "I think you're misunderstanding my intentions here." "Am I?" she shot back. "Because it seems to me like you invited me on this show just so you could dismiss my experiences and make light of my struggles." "That's absolutely not true," Seth replied, his voice becoming more defensive. "I invited you because I respect you, and I thought our viewers would enjoy hearing from you." "Enjoy?" Meghan repeated mockingly. "Yes, I'm sure they're enjoying this immensely. Nothing quite like watching someone get torn down on live television, right?" The audience was now visibly uncomfortable, some people shifting in their seats, others whispering to their neighbors. This was not the entertainment they had come for. "Nobody's trying to tear you down," Seth said, his patience beginning to wear thin. "I've been nothing but respectful since you walked out here." "Respectful?" Meghan laughed harshly. "You call it respectful to minimize my experiences? To suggest that media harassment is just part of the job?" "I never said that," Seth replied, his voice rising slightly despite his efforts to remain calm. "I said that criticism comes with being in the public eye. That's not the same thing as harassment. Isn't it, though?" Meghan leaned forward aggressively. "When does criticism become harassment, Seth? When does legitimate journalism become a coordinated attack?" Seth took a deep breath, clearly struggling to maintain his composure. "Look, I think we can both agree that the media landscape is complicated, but I'm not here to relitigate your relationship with the press." "No," Meghan said coldly. "You're here to make jokes and keep things light while real people suffer real consequences from the lies that get spread about them." "That's not fair," Seth said, his voice finally showing real frustration. "I'm a late-night talk show host, not a journalist. I'm here to entertain people, to help them forget about their problems for a little while." "Help them forget?" Meghan said with disgust. "How noble of you. Meanwhile, some of us don't have the luxury of forgetting. Some of us have to live with the consequences of other people's entertainment." Seth's jaw tightened. "I understand that you've been through difficult experiences, but that doesn't give you the right to attack me for doing my job." "Your job?" Meghan said, standing up suddenly from her chair. "Is that what you call this? Ambushing guests and then playing the victim when they don't perform the way you want them to?" The studio fell completely silent. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate, unsure whether to keep recording this breakdown in real time. "Sit down, Meghan," Seth said quietly, his professional demeanor finally cracking completely. "You're being completely unreasonable." "Unreasonable?" Meghan's voice reached a new pitch. "I'm being unreasonable for having feelings? For expecting to be treated with basic human decency?" "You are being treated with decency," Seth replied firmly. "What you're not being treated with is kid gloves. And frankly, I don't think that's what you actually want anyway." "Don't tell me what I want," Meghan snapped. "You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know anything." "You're right," Seth said, his voice cold now. "I don't know you, but I know what I'm seeing right now, and it's not someone who wants to have a conversation. It's someone who wants to have a fight." "Maybe I do want to have a fight," Meghan said defiantly. "Maybe I'm tired of sitting quietly while people like you get to decide how my story gets told." "People like me," Seth repeated slowly. "What exactly does that mean?" Meghan's eyes narrowed. "You know exactly what it means." The tension in the room reached a breaking point. Seth's producer was now frantically gesturing from off stage, but Seth seemed determined to see this through to its conclusion. "No," Seth said firmly, his voice cutting through the thick tension. "I don't know what that means. And I think you should explain yourself before you say something you'll regret." Meghan's face flushed red. "Are you threatening me now?" "I'm giving you a chance to clarify what sounds like a very serious accusation," Seth replied evenly. "Because if you're suggesting what I think you're suggesting, then this conversation is over." "This conversation has been over since it started," Meghan shot back. "You never intended to have a real discussion. This was always going to be about putting me in my place." Seth stood up from his desk, something he rarely did during interviews. "That's enough. You came on my show as a guest, and I've treated you with nothing but respect. The fact that you can't handle a normal conversation without turning it into some kind of persecution complex says more about you than it does about me." "Persecution complex?" Meghan's voice reached a shriek. "How dare you? How dare you sit there and minimize everything I've been through?" "I haven't minimized anything," Seth said, his voice steady but cold. "I asked you about your projects. I asked you about your family. Those are normal interview questions. If you can't answer them without attacking me, then maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews." The audience was completely silent now, watching this train wreck unfold in real time. Some people looked genuinely shocked. Others seemed embarrassed for everyone involved. "You know what your problem is, Seth?" Meghan said, pointing her finger at him accusingly. "You think you can hide behind your nice guy image while you do the same thing every other host does. You bring people on here to be your dancing monkeys." "Dancing monkeys?" Seth repeated incredulously. "You agreed to come on this show. Nobody forced you to be here." "Didn't they?" Meghan laughed bitterly. "You have no idea what it's like to be expected to smile and perform and be grateful for every crumb of positive attention you get." "You're a millionaire," Seth said bluntly. "You have more opportunities and privileges than 99% of people will ever have. So forgive me if I don't feel sorry for you because a talk show host asked you about your family." Meghan's mouth fell open. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Seth continued, his patience completely exhausted. "You came on my show, insulted me, insulted my audience, and now you're acting like you're some kind of victim because I won't let you get away with it." "I am a victim," Meghan insisted. "I've been victimized by the press, by institutions, by people who refuse to see me as anything other than a threat." "The only threat here," Seth said quietly, "is to your own reputation. Because right now, millions of people are watching. You have a complete meltdown on national television." Meghan seemed to realize for the first time that the cameras were still rolling. She looked around the studio as if seeing it clearly for the first time. "Turn the cameras off," she demanded. "No," Seth said simply. "Turn them off right now," Meghan repeated, her voice becoming desperate. "This is live television," Seth explained calmly. "I can't turn them off, and even if I could, I wouldn't. You made the choice to behave this way in front of my audience. Now you get to live with the consequences." Meghan stared at him in disbelief. "You're really going to let this air?" "I don't have a choice," Seth replied. "It's already airing. But more importantly, I shouldn't have to protect you from your own behavior." The reality of the situation seemed to hit Meghan all at once. She looked around the studio again, seeing the shocked faces of the audience members, the confused expressions of the crew, the red lights on the cameras. That meant everything was being broadcast live to millions of homes. "This isn't over," she said, grabbing her purse from beside the chair. "Yes, it is," Seth said firmly. "Security will escort you out." As if summoned by his words, 2 large security guards appeared from the wings of the stage. They didn't touch Meghan, but their presence made it clear that her time in the studio was over. "You'll regret this," Meghan said, her voice shaking with rage. "All of you will regret this." "The only person who's going to regret anything," Seth said as she moved toward the exit, "is you. When you wake up tomorrow and realize what you just did to yourself." Meghan stopped at the edge of the stage and turned back one final time. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Actually," Seth replied calmly, "I think I do now." With that, Meghan Markle stormed off the stage, flanked by security guards, leaving behind a stunned studio audience and a host who looked both exhausted and relieved. Seth turned back to his desk and sat down slowly. He looked directly into the camera, his expression serious but composed. "Well," he said after a long pause, "that certainly wasn't what any of us expected tonight. When we come back after this commercial break, we'll try to salvage what's left of the show with some comedy. Because frankly, after what we just witnessed, I think we could all use a laugh." The studio lights dimmed as they cut to commercial, but the damage was already done. In 39 seconds of escalating confrontation, a carefully managed public image had been completely destroyed, broadcast live to millions of viewers who would never forget what they had just seen.